Hello, I'm John Tufte, and I am by far and away the dumber half of the two authors that wrote this book. Dr. Brenda, we're going to call her that, introduced it, and I'm going to guess. I haven't heard what she added thus far, but I'm going to guess she spoke five times as long as I'm going to. So I've got that going for me. You're going to celebrate that. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about our book. We're blessed that we could do that, and I'm going to talk about the issue of critical versus peripheral, and what we learned from our participants, our research participants. It's interesting when you conduct interviews of people in qualitative research. If you're disciplined and you can really pay attention, you will learn as much from what they don't say as you will from what they say. And Brenda and I went in. We each had some predictions, and hers were, her predictions were a bit more positive than mine. I was terrified. Brenda was absolutely certain that every single college freshman, college senior, and recent college graduate was going to talk about their best teachers being so tech gifted. And I'm going to come back to that because we get to make fun of Brenda, and I take advantage of that opportunity anytime I can get. I was terrified that we were going to get some canned, awful spiel from young people about the glory of collaboration, and then when we'd push for input, there'd be description of loose and free zones of nothingness, and nobody would be able to describe anything other than something they've heard was good. And yeah, that was a horrible, cynical approach for me to go into, but we didn't hear any of that. And we didn't there's a series of things that I'll discuss that we didn't hear about. But first, to make fun of Brenda, we did interview someone that came from a really small private school and was a university student. And we weren't supposed to needle. We agreed. I mean, decent research. We don't lead people with questions. But this young man at the time, he recently came from a high school setting where they didn't use technology. And I could just see my brilliant wife's antennas shooting up as we're interviewing. I'm thinking, here we go, leave this kid alone. And she kept poking in, well, I bet that was quite challenging to move to higher education without ever having, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, and trying to prove a point. And I was trying to stab her with one of our pens, but I couldn't reach her leg. And this kiddo gets talking about how it's just been so challenging to get to the university where he was a student and learn some of these technologies because he was, evidently writing papers in a cave somewhere. Brenda asked, and how long did it take you? And he told a story. Well, I couldn't believe it. I got to college and found out we had to pay tuition. We had to set things up online, and oh, it was miserable. I had to sit down with my roommate for he paused, 20 minutes to learn this thing. Then I almost had to leave the room. I was laughing so hard I couldn't see straight. Jokes aside, that what we found looking at research with critical and peripheral is that it was crazy. All of these people we interviewed eventually landed on one, two, or three of the big things that I'll get to. And the other stuff was just, as we labeled, peripheral. What is peripheral? Well, I'll start by saying every good teacher I've ever met uses peripheral. If you're an educator, you, for example, use technology. We all use technology. Some of us are old enough to remember when colleagues would, oh, I'm not doing anything on the computer. Well, those days are gone. We have to use technology to teach. We have, for example, state-of-the-art facilities. There are schools in this state that look like UFOs. We use these to our advantage. What else would be peripheral that was just never discussed? Our subjects never talked about teaching style. They never talked about specific classroom activities. They didn't talk about fun. I thought for sure we'd get inundated with that. No, That like when asked the question to describe their most impactful educators, we didn't get things like technology, teaching style, fun. Um, we they would pause and they would think, this is the magic. This is the transition. What were they then? Well, first of all, the peripherals, that's the what. And maybe when we asked the question, we didn't load it up, but they weren't interested in describing the what. They were interested in referencing the who. So who are they? They wanted to talk about the most impactful teachers they've had. And sometimes, by the way, I know Brenda brought this up, sometimes they didn't know those teachers were as impactful until later in their life. I mean, a lot of times, a lot of, these, some of these people were nearly 30 years old and they'd go back and describe a second grade teacher. Think of the magic of that. Well, they don't remember classroom activities, but they remembered some stuff. And here it is. Here's the magic. Who are these most impactful teachers? Number one, they know their stuff. They know the content, and that neither one of us expected to hear this to the extent that we did, but there was some beauty in that. And that, by the way, that's something that so many of our participants would go back and say, look, I didn't know this was a big deal when I was getting it from this teacher. I mean, think about how dumb we were at 16. I mean, did we care that our English teacher knew about adverbs? Did we care that our Algebra 2 teacher knew her stuff? I mean, whichever that is. But they do, and then there were some exceptions to this. Of course, college nursing students were famed for this when we'd interview them. One young lady looked and said, listen, I've got friends. I don't need a friend. I need to pass this test coming up. They, number one, praised the educators that knew the stuff. They had to know their content. Secondly, going with this, they praised the teachers, these most impactful teachers that our subjects described knew how to teach their stuff. They're not in the field of education, so they wouldn't have used the word pedagogy. We did, of course, but that's what it is. It's one thing to know our stuff, but it's another thing to bring it. Can you teach it? And they would go on and on describing how this happened, that someone had this incredible skill, this incredible knowledge of X, whatever that curriculum is, and then just was magical at teaching it. And how did that happen? That was the third piece of who the high impact educators are. They have these incredible relationships with students. We have to freeze there so that we get this. They have these incredible relationships with students that's focused on student growth, not being pals. We're not working at the Dairy Queen. We're not there to make you laugh every day. No. And so again, what we would find over and over and over when asking them who their most impactful educators have been, are, etc. One, they know their stuff. It's undeniable. We have to know our stuff. Two, knew how to teach the stuff. Like this is curriculum. It's important. We have to know how to teach this. And three, to do that, we have to have relationships, and those relationships have to be focused on student growth. And wow. And I always take advantage. I mean, here I am, if you can see my bald head and gray beard. I wouldn't have seen this coming either, but over and over and over, when these young people would describe these teachers, they would typically end up describing someone that took a while to get there. These were older teachers. These were people that, like, if you're watching this video and you are in education, you know that this is a remarkably difficult profession. And we don't fall into our first classrooms knowing our content the way we should. Not many of us do. I mean, listen, the first grammar courses I taught out of college, all those kids deserve a refund. Like, that was how embarrassing. I had to teach myself some grammar, and I had to learn how to teach that grammar. I had to learn those, and then relationships. I share this whenever I present. like a lot of people back when I was skinny and had hair, oh my gosh, if the kids were laughing, then I was some sort of English teaching god. Why don't they give me a raise? And it took me a while to realize professionally that that might be a nice side effect. Fun is a wonderful peripheral. That's a great thing. And to be likable is this incredible, well, likable is different than being friends, right? Uh, but that my skill to make relationships with students has to go somewhere. It has to be beyond it's fun going to Mr. Tufte's classroom. No, Mr. Tufte builds relationships so that we learn things. And that's it. That's the home run. That's the elevator speech with this, that in education we have critical, knowing our content, knowing how to teach our content, and building relationships so that it leads somewhere towards student growth. That's critical. You can't have anything more important than that. And the peripheral can help us get there, but the peripheral issues like, oh, tech savvy, wow, Dr. Brenda Tufte can launch missiles from her computer. She is a great educator, and those abilities she's got with technology help her do that, but it wouldn't mean anything if she didn't know her content, know how to teach her content, and build relationships towards student growth. This was a classic ramble on my part, and I'm happy. Thanks again.